Hello, I'm Kyle Tovey, and like many creatives in the industry, I wear lots of hats. I'm an actor, I'm an agent, and I'm one of the directors of Audition Ready. On the AR pod, we are catching up with some familiar faces to learn how they got to where they are today, and also what tips and tricks and words of advice they might give you to get audition ready. So, let's find out who's on the pod today. So, on today's pod, I'm joined by the amazing Queen of the West End, Kerry Ellis. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so grateful, and I'm sure that we're going to learn so much today that our young viewers can take on board. You obviously don't need any introduction, but just give us a bit of an hello.
Oh, well, it's lovely to be here. And I think, what is nice is that, I've been on tour for the last few months and we were just talking about it then. And I've been supported by you guys and we've had lots of young talent join me on the tour. And you know what? For me, it's been so nice to be able to give that back and give that opportunities to lots of young people, and to meet some of the young talent out there has been amazing. So I've just been blown away. So it's nice to be on here and speaking to you, and those of you that I've met, hello, and those of you that I haven't, maybe I'll meet you in the future. Thanks for having me.
I know you've got a book as well at the moment that everyone can obviously buy, and maybe you touch on some of these questions in your book, but just give us a bit of a brief rundown as we go through. Don't give too much away, because obviously if they want to know more, they can go buy the book. But it would be really good to know what those early inspirations were. What sort of inspired you to pursue a career in performing, Kerry?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this on the tour as well. My tour is about my journey, which has been really nice to kind of go over and rediscover. Because I think when you're in it, you kind of, not that you forget about it, but you're so focused on what you're doing at that point, you forget all of those early experiences. So that's been really nice for me to go back over them. And I think early days, I was kind of, I was typically one of those kids that was at a local kind of church hall dance school, doing my ballet tap and modern, on a weekend at quite a young age. I think I was maybe 3 or 4, going to like baby ballet or whatever it was. But I think it definitely sparked something very early in me, whether I was aware of it or not. I definitely loved going. It wasn't like a chore that my parents would have to go, come on, you got to go and do your dance classes. Like, I loved going. And, I would have given up school there and then to even, to go that route. I really would have done. I just loved every minute of it. And I guess I was inspired, by the musicals at the time, because that was very much in our forefront in that time. That was, kind of 90s. There was lots of big musicals, like the big ones like Les Mis and Phantom and Miss Saigon. They were I guess they were new, but they were out there, and they kind of inspired me. I had the double cassettes for them and I would listen to them. And I would also listen to people like Michael Ball and Elaine Page and people on those cast recordings. I'd listen to like those multi variety tracks of all the different musicals. So whoever was on those, like people like Mark Rattray, Marty Webb, Dave Willits, obviously Michael was on there. Like those kind of people were very much in my forefront because I would listen to those songs. So yeah, my dance training kind of took me into it and kind of sparked my passion. And I loved watching like the movie musicals. I loved watching, anything that was music related. I just loved it, and it seemed like a natural progression for me.
It must feel insane to know that, like, you looking up to people like Michael Ball, and it must be really insane to think that people are out there looking up at you and thinking, I want to do what she does. Do you ever get used to that?
No, I don't think you do, and I don't think you realise it. Even when because I'm still doing it. I think if I wasn't doing it anymore and I kind of retired and I was teaching kind of full time, or I was not still out there performing and doing it, I think maybe, but it still kind of shocks me. I mean, I was in Brighton the other day and I got stopped by this girl, and I was like, big coat, no makeup, like tearing about Brighton, and she stopped me and she went, I'm really sorry, I have to stop you. I just think you're amazing, you're incredible. And it took me by surprise. And I think because I'm not on the television as such, not, like your kind of regular household name. It's not in my world every day, and it is sometimes, but it always kind of catches me out. So I think, and like meeting some of your young people, when they say, "Oh, I want to do like what you're doing," and I also think because. Obviously when Wicked was a big phenomenon and there was a lot of excitement around the show, I understood that lots of drama school kids, lots of young kids at that point were looking at Wicked and going, yeah, so I kind of understood that a little bit more. But now that that's a long time ago and people still kind of say it, I mean, and I haven't done really many big shows recently, so I don't know, maybe it's because they see that I've had longevity and I'm still doing it, maybe, I don't know, but it's flattering and it takes me by surprise. Yeah, it does.
So let's take you back to training. So you trained at Lanes, right?
Yeah, 3 years Lane Theatre Arts. I was at 16. We had really talented year groups. Many people out there are doing brilliant things in all aspects of the industry. And so I had a brilliant group of people that were just super inspiring and to grow up with.
And sort of going into training now, if you were a young performer venturing into drama school auditions, what bit of advice would you give them?
I would say go and see as many as you can. I said there's so many options out there now, which there wasn't when we were training. There was kind of like the big 6 colleges. But now there's so much access to so many different styles and sorts of training. There's online courses, there's colleges, there's summer schools, there's workshops, there's so much out there to kind of that you can cater to yourself. And I think if you're looking for a specific form of training, go out and find out about it, do your research, go and have maybe a day course on one of the colleges, or go and experience it so that you know that it's right for you. Because you don't want to go to a college for 3 years or, go into a course for however long and be miserable, and the colleges and the forms of education are so different, like Lanes would be very different to performers, to, the RSC, to the National Youth Theatre. They're all incredibly different. So go out and find what's right for you. And like I said, there's so many options for you to go and like taster days. So go and find that. And remember that you're auditioning them as well. That it may be whether you get in or not, but remember it's where you're going to spend your time. So you want it to be right for you. And I would say be yourself. Don't try and be what they want you to be. Be yourself, because that's what will take you through to have longevity in the industry anyway. If you are true to yourself and you don't try and fit a mold or try and, fit in with the other 30 people in the room, be your authentic self.
So post Lanes, obviously you went out there and you were doing that scary audition circuit, no doubt. What was your first audition and can you recall how you felt?
Yeah, I mean, my first audition, I think I auditioned through college. And I remember auditioning for the National Youth, like when I was about 12.
Yeah.
And that was quite scary. So I kind of was auditioning from a really early age. So I think when I actually got to audition seriously for jobs once I'd left college, it was kind of already in my world a little bit. But I guess the first job I did was for Magic and the Musicals, and I remember having a quick audition. They needed someone really quickly, so I remember going in and doing like a full-on dance day, singing day, doing lots of different routines and songs, and then I got the job the next day, and I just remember kind of going, oh, this is how it is, this is what we have to go through. And I think later on when I started to go in for things like My Fair Lady, it started to get a bit more serious, and you start to want things a little bit more, and you put pressure on yourself a little bit more. They're terrible now. I think I'm awful at auditioning now. I think I'm like worse, because I think when you're younger, you're fearless and you have nothing to prove. You can just go in and you can just be. Whereas now there's an expectation of me. My CV goes in before me, and then people expect me to deliver in a certain way, and I find that incredibly hard. And more often than not, I'll know the majority of the panel. And that's quite frightening. You may have worked with those people like years ago, and they may have, been on stage with you, and then suddenly they're sitting behind the table, which is quite interesting. But you know what? It's part of it, and it's what we kind of have to do. We have to get involved or get off the train. That's
Yeah.
just part of it.
So, what would you say is the most memorable audition that you've ever done? For whatever reason, good, bad, strange.
Yeah, they've all been pretty memorable. I think because they're so intense, you remember them. Like I can remember most of them, weirdly. And I talk a lot about them on the tour. But yeah, I do remember them vividly. I guess Wicked was quite a big one because I went in so many times. And I originally, people don't know this, I originally sang for both witches. I think because I'd obviously played Eliza and had that kind of soprano-esque voice, and I probably looked a little bit more Glinda. So I actually sang for both witches, and then I went in again 7 times. Doing different material each time. And I remember going in the final audition and wearing these like green suede boots, and I'd worn them a couple of times throughout the other auditions, and was like, oh, I think they're going to bring me some luck. And you hold on to anything in those auditions. You kind of think, oh, they're my lucky boots or my lucky pants or whatever it is. And I did wear them, and I remember it being quite. I was nervous, but I think because I'd been in so many times, I was kind of okay with it. And by the final audition, I was kind of ready.
You're going to be inundated now with people wanting to borrow your green boots, aren't you?
I don't own them anymore.
Oh.
They're not on Vinted, sadly.
Some lucky person out there walking around with your green boots. That sort of brings me nicely on to rituals. So, I mean, I guess, you've had a fair amount of time auditioning out there, and do you have anything that you find is a good ritual before you head into an audition, now that you've sort of ticked that off? Every time you can do that, it gets you in the frame of mind, gets you in the zone for an audition?
Not really, but then I'm also not one of those people that's kind of superstitious or gets in a routine before a show either. I'm not a person that, has to do certain things at a certain time in a show. If anything, I try and change it up because I don't want to get into that routine. I don't want those superstitions of if I don't wear my green boots, I'm gonna fail. So I do try and change it up. I mean, I try and be as prepared as I can be, which is really difficult because sometimes you can get sent a billion songs and loads of script, like, and say they want you to go in the next day, and that's really tricky. So I just try and, again, be as prepared as I can be, but I try and not overly stress about it, which is difficult because the minute I get an audition in, my brain doesn't switch off. Like, I can't switch off from it. It's always like on the back of my mind going, got to learn those lines, got to learn those songs, and life gets in the way. You've got so much other stuff going on that it can be quite consuming. So I try and give as much time to it as I can, and then I go in and just give it my best shot. And I don't think you can overthink auditions. I think you just got to go in, give it your best shot. Do everything you can. Be kind, be polite, be nice, be friendly, and be interested. Be the person they want to cast, and then let it go. Walk out the room and forget about it, because it has to be like routine for us. We have to be able to go in 100% and then let it go, because otherwise it can be too overwhelming, too consuming, too stressful. So yeah, that's kind of my tips, I guess.
And I was going to ask, is there anything that you would sort of give an advice to your former self? And I guess it probably is that. Just go into it, enjoy it, give it your all, is it?
I think I would be braver. I would make braver choices earlier on. Well, and even now, I'm not a particularly outgoing kind of person. Like, I'm a bit of an extrovert introvert, as many performers are. When I'm on stage, I can be incredibly courageous and fearless. In socially or in my everyday life, I'm not like that at all. I'm quite reserved. I don't like, I'm not a massive fan of like going out and being in big groups of people. But I love being on stage in front of thousands of people, which is kind of weird. But I would say to myself, be a bit more courageous. Like, if I walked into an audition, like just do something crazy, go for it a little bit more, get something out of it, you know, because I think I'm just very cautious and I'm not sure that's the best way to be. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Is there, obviously there's so much you've done, it's probably difficult to say, but very often some of the passion projects along the way that maybe aren't as out there sort of get lost, I guess, a little behind the scenes to all those big commercial projects. Has there maybe been something that you're particularly proud of that maybe you've had to put in a lot more work than usual, something really made you proud of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, there's been lots of things like that, but you're exactly right. The big kind of, you know, big superstar shows, they do kind of take over, and things that I'm probably most proud of are things like the Shakespeare that I did more recently. I never thought I'd do a Shakespeare. I never thought I'd be able to learn a Shakespeare, and I was super proud of that because it really took me a long time to learn it, and you know, the effort went in before I even went in rehearsal room. And it really took me a long time to learn it. And I was super proud of myself. One, for even getting it, and two, for actually being able to deliver and feeling comfortable as well. I had massive imposter syndrome in rehearsals because I was with loads of real brilliant actors, you know, and sat next to like Jonathan Hyde going, what is my life? And I had massive, you know, just like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. But once we got into the rehearsal period and we got on stage, you know, I suddenly were like, oh, okay, it's the same, you know,
Yeah.
it's the same. And then I became comfortable and really enjoyed it. And same with things like The Importance of Being Earnest, that play, again, massive imposter syndrome. But again, felt very rewarded after doing it. Murder Ballad was quite a challenge because it was closer to, you know, most big musicals or big shows you have a big costume or you have like completely different character to yourself, whereas Murder Ballad was more of a real story and I looked like me on the stage, and that freaked me out a little bit. So yeah, that I was quite proud that I got over that and got through that. So yeah, that's probably my most proud, I think.
I think whenever we pushed outside our comfort zone, we should recognise a little bit, hang on a minute, that's been a step outside of where my norm is, and I should be proud of myself. And I always say to those going into auditions, regardless of the outcome, you've achieved something massive. You know, to hear that maybe even Kerry Ellis has felt a bit of imposter syndrome in a rehearsal room.
All the time. And I think you're absolutely right. And like I've been saying to these young talented people that have been getting up in my shows, it's not easy to do that. And I say that to the audience afterwards. That's not an easy thing at such a young age, well, any age, to get up and just sing and be vulnerable and perform in front of people. And then, you know, it's done. It's just not easy at all. What we do in our comfort zone is not easy. You know, if it was, then everybody would do it. So you're absolutely right to kind of take those moments to go, yeah, this is an achievement. This is great.
So you've done so much. Is there one role or something out there, even if it's a miscast, is there one thing out there that you would love to do?
Oh, there's loads. I'd love to do the new version of Sunset because I think that is just a great. Oh, it's amazing. I'd love to do that. And there's also lots of like, I'd like to play Gypsy, and I've never done Chicago, Evita. You know, there's so many different roles out there that I'm not quite right for yet. Or I'd love to play Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar. I'd love, you know,
Wouldn't that be
there's so
insane?
many. Oh, and what I love about our industry is that it constantly changes. It constantly flips itself on the head. What you think you might be right for casting wise, they suddenly might go completely off the wall and cast it completely differently. And I love that there's always opportunity. There's always kind of like, you don't know what's coming. And I kind of thrive on that. Many people don't, but I like that I don't know what's happening next, or that my life can change in a phone call tomorrow. And it does constantly. And you've got to have, you know, you've got to have some kind of big kahunas to kind of sit it out, to trust that it's going to happen, because it does happen. You sometimes have to instigate it, you know, sometimes you have to make noises or make connections or put yourself out there in some other way, and then something else happens. But it does happen. It really does happen.
Well, I'm waiting for Judas. And do you know, I've been really lucky to see the tour a few times, and it really does surprise me that why has nobody cast you as Evita?
Because I'm too old now.
Oh no, you would have been the perfect casting.
Oh, I know. Well, yeah, I mean, I may have been back then, but also they just went a different way, and that's
Yeah,
okay. And also, if I had have got a Vita, I wouldn't have got Wicked, and I wouldn't have gone down that path, and
yeah.
that's fine as well. Sometimes
Mm,
there's you put all your eggs in one basket and go, I desperately want this role, and it doesn't happen, but it's
yeah,
not meant for you, and that's
yeah,
okay because something else is coming your way, and that was the whole Wicked story for me.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
why I like the show, and I write about it in the book and stuff because I think it's a really important message for people to go. Sometimes, it's just not right for you. It's just not coming your way. You might be the perfect casting,
Mm,
but it's just not at that time. It's just not ready for you.
yeah. What's that saying? What's for you won't pass you, or something like that, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So what does 2025 look like for you? So you've got more tour dates?
Yeah. So I finished this. I finished this in 2 weeks, and then I go into 101 Dalmatians
Yeah, that's
for
exciting.
over Christmas. And then I've got a concert, very exciting concert coming out that's going to be announced very soon, but I can't talk about it.
Okay.
But look out for that in February. That's going to be really exciting. Um, my online course, which is great, that's going to start in March. I do an online course for people that are interested in the industry, which is really nice. Actually, it's nice to be able to give back to people and give myself or give people access to me to ask anything they want to ask and be able to help them, guide them onto their next step or help them develop their journey. So that's exciting.
Where can people find out most about your course? Is it on the website or social
It's on my
socials?
website. It's also I post it on my socials all
Cool.
the time. You can join a wait list and then we basically email you all the information. And then in the summer, there's some concerts coming up. I think I'm going to China for a little bit to do some concerts out there. And then not my course, my tour's going to go out again at the end of the year. And then there's some Christmas concerts. I mean, next year's pretty stacked already.
Mm. I hate to manage your diary, and that's
I don't look. I just
no.
go, no,
It's best to look on the day.
yeah, I do. I do.
So I've got a few quick fires for you to end, okay? Now, don't think too much into them. I guess just say what comes to mind as long as it's clean. Okay, here we go. So, what's the most unique audition request you've ever had?
Oh, I was asked to pretend. I went into for a commercial once, and I was asked to pretend to play the guitar drunk
Okay.
and sing, even though I don't play guitar really. So I was meant to kind of mime doing this guitar and then sing, make up a song. Oh, it was awful. And pretend to be drunk at the same time. It was awful. I was like, oh, I definitely haven't got this, and I did.
But at least you did it, right? Took yourself out of
I
your
did.
comfort zone. If you could do one thing, I mean, we probably know the answer to this, but if you could do one thing for the rest of your life, would it be stage or screen?
Oh. Well, I would quite like to do a bit more screen because I've
Ah,
dabbled,
yeah.
massively dabbled. So I would be ready for a complete change and I would go screen. Yeah.
Nice, very nice. Okay. Favorite musical or play?
Oh, probably My Fair Lady because it means so much to me. I have a lot of connections with it.
Biggest annoyance about auditions?
Oh, the amount you have to learn. I think it's just annoying. I think, you're kind of almost tested on a memory test
Yeah.
than actually what you bring to the room. And I think that's just irritating.
Last soundtrack you listened to?
Probably 101 Dalmatians and it's not a soundtrack. It's just what I'm listening to constantly because I'm trying to learn
Yeah.
it. Which is
And then finally, if you could sum up everything that you've experienced or learnt and pop it into a sentence and give it to a young person and say, this is the advice I would give you to be audition ready, what would it be?
oh, I think I've already said it, but I think I would say be brave and just be your authentic self. Do everything you can to control the controllables, be as prepared as you possibly can be, and then just enjoy the moment because these moments do flash past us and they can change your life. Those auditions can change your life. So just try and enjoy them and get something from you out of it and just be yourself.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So everyone needs to go and buy the book, sign up for your course, come watch you on tour and Underwood Auditions and everything else. And then we look out for the concert announcement next year as well. Oh,
Yes, mentor it.
I'm exhausted just listening to you. Kerry,
I
thank you
am.
so, so much. Thank you.
Thank you.